When the storm rolls in, it's not just thunder you need to fear. In the farmhouse, the forest, the road, or deep underground, something waits. Based on true American horror legends, this storm doesn't pass. It watches. It whispers. It comes for you. A rural farmhouse in Kansas. It started with static. Marla had lived alone on the family farm in Kansas ever since her parents passed. The thunderstorm that rolled in that evening was one of the worst she'd seen in years. Wind so strong they shook the siding, and lightning so frequent the night looked like it was blinking. She sat at the kitchen table, eating a microwave dinner when the power went out. The storm radio on the shelf buzzed to life. It was an old emergency model, battery-powered, the kind her father had insisted they always keep nearby. At first, it played the usual broadcast. Severe thunderstorm warning for Butler County. Seek shelter immediately. Stay away from windows. But then it changed. The voice on the radio, calm male, shifted mid-sentence. Take cover immediately. They're already inside. If you hear footsteps and no one's there, it's too late. Marla froze. She twisted the dial, trying to get back to the weather broadcast. But the voice returned, clearer now, crackling through the static like it was meant for her. Marla, do not go to the second floor. Do not answer the door. They're watching you from the corn. Her blood ran cold. She stared at the radio. How? She whispered aloud. She hadn't told anyone she was staying at the farm tonight. Her closest neighbor was 2 miles down the road. Her self-service was gone. The radio let out another burst of static, then a strange garbled sound like crying. Marla grabbed a flashlight and crept to the back door, shining out over the fields. Corn stretched in every direction. Lightning flashed overhead. Nothing. She locked the door and backed away. Another message buzzed through. One of them is already inside. She dropped the flashlight. No, she whispered. No, this is a prank. But the message repeated, louder this time. One of them is already inside. Marla grabbed the old hunting rifle from the hallway closet. Her father had kept it loaded for coyotes, and she'd learned to shoot when she was 10. She crept through the living room. The floor creaked under her weight. The storm outside howled like a wounded animal. Thunder shook the windows. Then she heard something upstairs. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Creak. 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 Her breathing quickened. She raised the rifle, pointing it toward the staircase. The power was still out, and the only light came from the flashes of lightning outside. The radio crackled again. Don't go upstairs. Not yet. Look under the table. What? She whispered. She turned toward the kitchen. Her chair was still pulled out. The flashlight flickered on the floor. She crawled forward, hand trembling, and peered under the table. A small, weathered notebook sat there. She hadn't seen it before. She picked it up. It was soaked and smelled of mildew. Inside were handwritten notes, frantic and shaky. They come during the storms. Don't trust reflections. They mimic voices. They know your name. Radio is the only warning. Don't go upstairs. That's where they feed. Thunder exploded above her. Then silence. Too much silence. Even the rain seemed to pause. Then a voice from the top of the stairs. Marla? It was her mother's voice. But her mother had died in 2017. Marla, honey, I need help. Come upstairs. She backed away slowly, clutching the rifle. I said, come upstairs. The voice was firmer now, and wrong. Something about the tone was slightly off, too flat, too slow. She bolted for the cellar, the one with the thick metal door and concrete walls. It had been built for tornadoes. She locked herself inside and sat in the pitch dark, the only sound of rapid breathing and the distant echo of thunder. But then a soft thud on the other side of the door. Then another, and a whisper through the keyhole. You shouldn't have listened to the radio. Outskirts of a small town in Oklahoma. Got it. Hook echo on radar. Looks like this storm's dropping a funnel. Kevin's voice was breathless as he leaned over the radar screen inside the team's RV. Rain slapped the windows like 1,000 tiny fists, and outside, the sky had gone a sickly green. Let's get closer, shouted Amy from the passenger seat, her camera already rolling. This could be it. The tornado for the documentaries. Their storm-chasing crew, 4 friends turned amateur documentarians, had driven all the way from Denver to Oklahoma, tracking supercells. They weren't prepared for what they found near the town of Barrow Creek. The town didn't appear on most modern maps. It looked like something frozen in time. Old gas station, a church, boarded up houses with peeling paint. The streets were deserted. Why is nobody out here? Said Marcus, the driver. Tornado warning or not, there should be cops or something. No cell signal either, Kevin muttered. Amy zoomed her camera on an old diner. Every window was shattered inward. The bell above the door clanged in the wind. That's when the lightning began. It wasn't normal. The bolt struck over and over again in the same spot, just past the diner, in a field lined with gravestones. Is that a cemetery? Amy asked. Yeah, said Kevin, squinting. And those headstones are moving? They were, only slightly at first, but each lightning flash seemed to make them shift, some tilting, some cracking open. The earth bulged and pulsed as if something was pushing from beneath. Nope. No, we're leaving right now, Marcus said, throwing the RV into reverse. Then came the first knock, not on the RV's door. From underneath, something was tapping from beneath the floorboards. Marcus, Amy whispered. Drive. Now. He slammed the gas, the RV lurching backwards. Kevin tripped and fell, hitting his head while Amy screamed. Then the power inside the RV cut out. Every screen blinked to black. Outside, lightning hit the cemetery again. And this time, something stood up. A figure, human-shaped, gray, wet, shivering violently. And then another, and another, dozens of them, all facing the RV. Amy kept the camera, rolling with a flashlight duct taped to the top. Kevin, now conscious but bleeding from his forehead, was muttering, "It's the storm. They said it could wake things. Old things. I read about it online. Barrow Creek was abandoned in the 60s after mass graves were found. They covered it up. No one's going to believe us." Amy shouted, panning the camera outside. She paused. "They're gone." Kevin looked up. "What?" She pointed. They were just there, like 20 of them. Now, nothing. Then a knock at the door. Tap, 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 followed by a voice. Soft, childlike. "Please, it's raining. Let me in." They froze. Amy edged closer to the door window and peeked through the sliver. A little girl stood there, soaked, pale, no expression on her face. Kevin shouted, "Don't open it. That's not a kid." But Amy was already pulling the latch. "Wait!" Kevin screamed. Amy flung the door open. There was no girl, only mud, and 2 small, muddy footprints on the steps. Then thunder exploded, the loudest yet, shaking the RV. The power snapped back on. The radio crackled to life. A garbled voice came through. "Barrow Creek is not safe. They rise with the lightning. They take your skin. They ride the wind. Stay in the light." "What does that mean?" Marcus shouted. Kevin pulled out a flashlight and scanned inside of the RV. That's when he noticed the floorboards. They were warping. Something was pressing up from beneath. Marcus tried to drive again. Nothing. The engine was dead. Kevin grabbed a flare and kicked open the back door. "Run. To the diner, Joe." They bolted through the rain. Amy kept filming even as her camera shorted out from the downpour. They made it inside the diner, panting and soaked. The place smelled like rot and old grease, but it was intact. For now. Then Amy looked at her footage. It had saved one last frame before the camera died. She stared. "Kevin, look." On screen, frozen in the last frame, was a shot of the RV. Dozens of gray figures surrounded it, pressing hands to the windows, mouths open in silent screams. But the worst part? One of them wore Marcus's face, and Marcus was standing right behind them. Suburban Georgia, near a creek and forest. Noah didn't believe in ghost stories. At 15, he was too old for that kind of stuff. But the storm that rolled in over Winding Creek, that summer changed everything. He and his older brother Mason were home alone while their parents attended a late-night church gathering. The thunderstorm hit fast. Black clouds, roaring winds, a sheet of rain hammering the roof. The house flickered in and out of power. Their dog, Copper, wouldn't stop barking at the back door. "Relax," Mason said. "It's just thunder." But Copper wasn't barking at the sky. He was barking at the woods. Winding Creek ran through a thick patch of trees behind their house. Normally, you couldn't see much on the porch, but the lightning that night made it easy. Noah stepped outside for a better look. And that's when he saw the lights. Small glowing orbs. They drifted along the water's edge, flickering with each bolt of lightning, like fireflies, but slower, smarter. Mason came out beside him. "You seeing that too?" "Yeah." They watched in silence as 3 orbs floated up from the creek and into the trees. Then a 4th one appeared, closer this time. And then, just like that, it zipped toward the house. Inside. "Now!" Mason yelled. They slammed the door shut just as a pop exploded against the glass. Noah peered out. The orb had disappeared, but in its place, a handprint scorched into the glass. Black, human-shaped, 5 long fingers. I think it's trying to get in," Noah whispered. "Nope, not tonight," Mason said, locking every door and window. But the lights kept coming, one by one, drifting out of the forest like glowing seeds in the rain. 10, 12, 20 of them, surrounding the house, watching. Then the power died completely. The house plunged into darkness. Noah lit a candle, his hand shaking. That's when Copper started growling again. But this time, not at the door. He was staring up the stairs. "No," Noah whispered. "Don't tell me they're inside." He and Mason crept toward the staircase. Every step creaked. Rain pounded the roof. Thunder cracked overhead. Then footsteps. Above them. But too fast. Too light. Like they weren't touching the floor. Mason whispered, "You hear that?" Noah nodded, heart hammering. They reached the top and saw the attic door open, just barely. The pull string swayed in the air, even though there was no wind. Mason raised a baseball bat. "If something's in there, I'm ending it." He yanked the string and climbed up. Noah waited below, candle in hand. Then Mason screamed. Not a scared scream, a pain scream. Noah raced up and found Mason standing there, holding something small in his hands. It was a Polaroid photo, a photo of them, from tonight, standing on the porch. But no one had taken that photo. Noah stepped closer. That's when he saw it. Something in the background, a figure, gray, barely visible, hunched in the corner of the porch, its mouth gaping open like it was mid-scream. Behind them, lightning cracked, and then the attic door slammed shut, trapping them both. They screamed and pounded on the wood. Suddenly, from the darkness, came a voice. Not human, not entirely. It sounded like both of their parents speaking in perfect unison. "Come outside. We're home." Noah froze. "We're home," the voice repeated. But it wasn't coming from downstairs. It was coming from the walls. They were surrounded. The lights weren't just outside anymore. Noah saw the flickers. Tiny glowing orbs floating through cracks in the attic, seeping through the wood. One drifted inches from his face, then passed through the floor like smoke. Mason grabbed him. "We're getting out. Now!" They kicked the attic hatch open and dropped to the hallway below. The house had changed, longer, darker, like it had stretched while they were trapped, and at the far end stood Copper, still, staring at them. Then, slowly he turned, revealing that half his body was gone, burned away, and his mouth was whispering words that sounded like Noah's own voice. They ran. Outside, the lights began to rise, hundreds of them now, spinning through the air, chasing them toward the creek. The storm reached its peak. Lightning struck a tree just feet from them, splitting it in two. Then Noah saw something in the water. Bodies. Hundreds of them, just beneath the surface. eyes open, mouths agape. Mason grabbed his arm. "Don't look at them. Run." They leapt over the creek and into the neighbor's field, the lights still chasing. Then, all at once, silence. The storm stopped. The lights vanished. The woods were calm, but the photo still burned into Noah's hand. An underground storm shelter in rural Texas. The sirens began just after 9 p.m. They were long and wailing, distorted by the thunder overhead. Sarah and her husband Tom were already rushing around the house, gathering flashlights and batteries. Their 2 kids, Emma and Ryan, were half asleep when they were pulled from their beds and led to the storm shelter out back. The shelter had been built by Tom's grandfather, an old reinforced structure buried deep in the backyard, with thick steel walls and a bolt-locked door. It smelled like damp earth and rust, but it saved their lives during past tornadoes. Tonight, though, something felt different. The wind didn't sound like wind anymore. It howled, low, guttural, like it had teeth. They climbed down the metal ladder and locked the hatch just as rain began to pour like a waterfall. Sarah clicked on the lantern. "Okay," Tom said, breathless. "We're safe now. It's just a storm." The kids curled up on the old futon while Sarah unpacked snacks and water. But then the radio buzzed. It was an old emergency radio, set on NOAA weather frequency. A familiar robotic voice crackled through. "Tornado warning remains in effect for central Wilburn County." Then it stopped. Silence, followed by something else. A voice, but not from the radio, from the walls. It was a whisper, faint, female, and far too close. "Let me in." Sarah froze. Tom turned off the lantern and held a finger to his lips. They waited. More whispers. This time from beneath the floor. "We were here first." The children began to cry. Tom whispered, "It's just wind. Wind does weird stuff in shelters." But Sarah knew better. She crawled toward the hatch and pressed her ear against the steel. Knock, knock. She fell back, stifling a scream. Then something slid through the vent. Paper. Old. Torn. Soaked. She picked it up with shaking hands. Scrawled in red crayon were 5 words. "You brought them down here." Sarah looked at Tom. "We didn't lock them out." "What?" he asked. She pointed to the vent. "It's open. That means..." A loud bang shook the shelter. The lights flickered. The children screamed. Then a voice, clear, cold, echoed through the small space. "You should have stayed upstairs." The air grew heavy, wet, like breathing inside a thundercloud. Sarah grabbed a flashlight and swept it around the shelter. At first, nothing. Then, something moved in the back corner. Not a person. Not exactly. It was tall and thin, pressed into the darkness, with skin the color of storm clouds. Its head twitched with every flash of lightning from the vents above. Tom shouted, "Get out!" He swung a wrench at the figure, but it vanished, just blinked out of sight. Then Ryan, the younger of the 2 kids, began whispering. "They're in the walls. They want to trade places." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, kneeling beside him. Ryan looked up, but his eyes weren't his anymore. They were white, storm white. "Let them have the shelter," he whispered. "They like the dark." Thunder cracked overhead. Sarah pulled the family together. "We need to go. Now!" Tom climbed the ladder and pushed on the hatch, locked tight from the outside. Impossible. He turned back. Someone locked us in. The radio clicked again. A voice, not human, spoke through it. "You brought your fear. We kept it. Now trade." Suddenly Emma screamed. She was staring into the corner, where the figure had returned. But now there were 2, both gray-skinned, both twitching, mirroring Tom and Sarah. One of them smiled. Its teeth were like jagged shards of metal. Tom swung the wrench again. This time, the figure grabbed it midair and melted it in its hand. "Trade," it whispered, then lunged. Sarah grabbed the emergency flare, lit it, and threw it at the figure. The flash of fire made both creatures shriek and vanish back into shadows. The smell of burnt ozone filled the shelter. "We need to burn them out," Sarah said. Tom opened the emergency gas line. "No choice," he said. "We torch it, then dig out later." They stuffed towels in the vents, lit another flare, and set it against the leaking gas valve. Sarah grabbed both kids and pressed them into the farthest corner. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Then everything went white. When rescuers arrived 2 days later, they found the shelter blown open, scorched black inside. No bodies. Only 2 strange markings on the wall. Human-shaped outlines, pressed into the steel like shadows frozen in place. The family was never found. But every thunderstorm in Wilburn County since has brought new whispers on the wind. "Let us in. You brought them down here. We like the dark."